Hello everyone, welcome back to another Helm to Tower video. It's Mike here. It's been a while since I've done this sort of more solo video here on the channel. It's just been a busy time in the world of Destiny 2, of course. That's what you know us for, Helm to Tower podcast and all that. But for a minute there, I was covering some other video games in the breadth of and style of Destiny, looters, MMO type things. One of those was Wayfinder. You know, I covered in a few videos already on the channel and the kind of rocky launch it had. So I'm not going to sit here and try and recap too much of that. But I think the last video I talked about was kind of their content roadmap that they were in the midst of doing. And then they kind of just went radio silent through the midst of that because they were still kind of dealing with that Digital Extremes not being their publisher anymore and them getting the sole rights. So that kind of process has finally happened, and now a few months later, and they are kind of taking the game in a new direction now that Airship Syndicate is the full publisher. Now, this has definitely already been met with a lot of mixed reception. I definitely have my own thoughts that are a little bit mixed on the whole ordeal that I'm going to get into, but first I thought I would just kind of go over all the information they've given us so far and, you know, just break it down for all of you, read through all the things, because they put out like a blog post. They did some facts and Q&As like real time in their Discords, and they've already put out some interviews with other like some content creators and stuff as well. So just going to try and encapsulate all of that here, and more so just kind of read through this stuff and then give my own thoughts, because I really like this game. I put a few hundred hours into this game, and it's shifting course. You know, just to be frank, it's not going to be an MMO light style game anymore. It's going to be single player / co-op experience. I think the games they've kind of coined it as is more like stuff like Remnant or Borderlands, or I think like Monster Hunter as well, where, you know, it's just going to be more focused on that, like that kind of single player experience, and there might be some other stuff to let you play it a little bit more, you know, randomized stuff maybe potentially. We'll just have to see. I don't know. That's definitely the stuff I'm the most curious about with the future of this game, because, you know, I came into it with that impression that it was going to be a game that's going to be going on for quite some time, and it seems like it's not going to be that as much. But let's just get into all the details here before I start rambling too much. So here you go. This is a blog post they posted on Steam. This is Wayfinder's Echoes. That is the name of the update that is coming to the game. I believe it is May 31st for folks who have already purchased the game. Like if you bought the game in early access as a founder on PC on Steam, you will be able to hop in May 31st. If you had not at all, June 11th, it is being the game is going to be put back on sale. Remember, they took the game down off sale once they kind of got full control of it. That happened, like, I want to say, like, back in March, I want to say. And they just took the game down for sale because they said there are a lot of big changes were going to happen to it. And I think they didn't want people continuing to buy stuff for that MMO version now that it's no longer really like an MMO light style game, live service game, free-to-play game that it was eventually going to become as it continued through early access, but obviously it's not happening anymore. So they took it down for sale. Now kind of having that other piece of how big the change was, it makes sense why they did that. So again, let's get into this blog here. As previously mentioned, upon issuing the transfer of service from Digital Extremes Airship Syndicate, the team began thinking long-term, how do we go about improving Wayfinder while keeping the game alive forever in a sustainable way? And straight up here it is. Removal of online requirements. Wayfinder will be removing all online requirements and will be a single-player game with optional 3-player co-op. No queues, no login, no accounts. You can choose to play solo on your Steam Deck while on the go or engage in peer-to-peer co-op with friends from your home PC. We realize this is a big shift, but a necessary one to guarantee that the game is around forever. This also means that all progress will not be carried forward due to saves being local and not on a server. This major change will be the basis for what we are calling the Wayfinder Echoes update. So there you go. All this stuff, all the online stuff, aspects of this game that were already in the game, gone. And not, it's basically like matchmaking into other players, cross-play between Steam and PlayStation and other stuff. no longer a thing. Cross save as well, not a thing that's going to be a part of this game anymore. It is quite literally you're going to have to find folks and friends and try and make that happen to play the game if you really want to play it in a co-op experience. But it seems like they're also trying to make the game more also potentially a single player experience that you could kind of play on your own as well. Definitely curious how that all fits in this new world, right? Because there's a lot of stuff in the game that was very centered around being an MMO experience, right? Like, how is the process of going to fight a world boss in the game going to feel now when, like, you know, you had all those cool social aspects of it being an MMO? I know that some of that stuff wasn't for everybody, and like a lot of it just kind of was not really a big deal. But I really enjoyed, like, you know, loading in and going into Skylight and seeing a bunch of other players' names, starting to see like regular people show up and over and over again every time I would log in, which is cool. Seeing like their outfits or their builds or what they're looking for or their character. Just small things like that were always fun. You know, the few limited time events that the game had during early access, it was cool to like see everybody like log in and be a part of that moment. And of course, like, they had a big world boss. Obviously, you could probably still go fight Pyre in this new version of the game in a single-player format, but, like, how is that going to feel now? Like, it just loses a little bit of magic, right? To like, be like, yeah, let me go fight this world boss by myself, I guess. Or, like, you know, it feels like a lot to just be like, let me get 3 other people to go fight this world boss, and then it's just, like, even just having, like, 3 or 4 of us going and fighting that thing, like, is not really that, like... It does not have the feel of like going to take a world boss on in this kind of experience. So it's stuff like that is just going to feel weird now. And I get, like, obviously some of that is just the nature of they started developing this game with that all stuff in mind, and now they have to pivot pretty hard. I don't know if it was specifically in this blog post, we might get to it, but like it was pretty clear and hard that like they were said like, hey, our options were basically shut the game down or do this, and we're going to try and do this because we didn't want the game to just disappear into the ether like a lot of other MMO live service games that kind of have, you know, a tough time finding an audience. And, you know, they didn't, and they also like lost the support of a publisher. And Airship Syndicate's just a development team. They don't have server infrastructure, marketing teams, publishing teams. You know, again, like in this whole process, like I said, May 31st or June 11th, it's going to be on Steam, on PC. Obviously, there was a PlayStation 5 and 4 version. That's now going to be coming later. So there's not going to be, like, on June 11th or whatever, or even on the 31st. Yeah, if you're a PlayStation player, you're just kind of out to dry until they release a PlayStation version later this year at some point. And they're also going to be putting on Xbox. It hasn't come to Xbox yet, but they did confirm it on all this news, of course, as well. But let me keep continuing. I knew I was going to have moments where I was going to start rambling. That's just how I am, you know, deal with it, whatever. Removing the online requirement wasn't our only major change. The industry has also shifted in recent years with more and more games coming out. They're all fighting for players' time and attention. Players have more to play than ever, and they're being asked to log into multiple games to check their daily quest, look at store rotation, and be drip-fed content. Players today are more apt to outright purchase a game they know is full of content and also respectful of their time. And the Echoes update will be changing, charging one price. So it'll be $24.99 during early access, and it will be increasing at full release. No in-game microtransaction or in-game purchases, just one price. Founders who have already purchased the game will have access, and all exclusive items included in each pack. Our Founders Packs will not be going back on sale. For anyone that supported us purchasing in-game Rune Silver, we've converted that Rune Silver into new in-game currency used to acquire exclusive cosmetics. So there you go. There's not going to be any kind of microtransactions. Of course, it's going to be a $24.99 price as it's going to be in early access starting on June 11th on PC. And then whenever it comes to PlayStation and Xbox later this year, I'm assuming it still might be in early access, but I know they said it's going to be around the time when the game is going into 1.0. But when it goes 1.0, it'll go up in price. Like maybe it'll go up to $30, $40, whatever it's going to end up being. We'll just have to see. But yeah, no microtransactions, no other stuff in this game forward. I think they keep going into it where, like, basically, you know, if you know there was cosmetics in the game, all kinds of stuff, now there's just kind of like loot that drops throughout different parts of the game. Even the armor sets themselves that you would buy as skins have been essentially converted into actual, like, drops, like armor drops, and they have stats and stuff. So, like, that is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool change. You know, again, as like a Destiny fan, I love still chasing armor and loot drops to get armor and, you know, get the looks of them, of course, but also, you know, having the stats and making builds and stuff with that is always a fun experience too. So we'll see how this game tackles that kind of stuff. But I do like that aspect of this change for sure. But I'm going to continue in this blog. We've touched every major system in the game, and as a result, the gameplay is not only more refined, but through our various playtests with those outside the studio, the game performs and plays better than before. Some of these changes include all weapons becoming randomized drops with various slots, armor now having stats and being collectible, thousands of cosmetics and housing items available to collect, and the removal of the grind to get new characters, eased requirements for awakening characters, increased housing item limits, adding 4 difficulties to choose from, incorporating traditional RPG talent into your progression, and much more. So yeah, a lot of stuff there. This update will also launch with the latest Wayfinder Grendel, as well as brand new hunts and a new overland zone 3 times the size of our last that's overflowing with content and points of interest. So yeah, that was like stuff that was promised in that roadmap back at the start of this year. All of that stuff is going to be here in this update, so we're not waiting for that stuff. So, you know, jump in March 31st or June 11th on Steam on PC. This new major area and Grendel and all of these changes, of course, are going to be in that. So that's cool as well, exciting as well. A lot of this stuff I'm still curious about. And again, it's technically going to be early access still, so they're probably going to be taking a lot of feedback to heart with all of these changes. And they've shared some screenshots and other things in the Discord. I'll probably swap over to the Discord at some point during this, however long this takes, to go over some like facts and Q&As, because they did show some screenshots of stuff, and like the weapons are like dropping on level with like your whatever level your kind of activities you're doing and how those things work. And so I'm very curious. That feels like an early Destiny style of loot progression, which is fine. I obviously enjoy that stuff plenty, the many hundreds of thousands of hours I put into Destiny. But the idea of like, okay, I can get a level 1 sword and it's going to have these randomized echo slots now, and there's going to be multiple drops of this sword. Are there ways for me to like, kind of like make that more convenient? Or like, can I take a sword that I get early on that has the echo slots and things that I already like on it? And can I take that later into the game, or am I just going to have to go try and farm another one of those swords? Just going to have to wait and see. I think, you know, that's going to lose a lot of it. It's going to make that, you know, a problem Destiny had for a while, where it's like the loot actually doesn't really matter until I'm maxed out the level of this character, and then I can go. Then I want to start farming stuff and finding the stuff with the rolls that matter, or the echo slots that matter, or whatever. You know, all that stuff is just going to be probably stuff we figure out once the game is out, because by the time this video comes out, you know, we'll only be like a week and a half away. I didn't originally play on Steam on PC. I mainly played on PlayStation, so I more than likely will be buying the PC early access version, and we'll probably have some videos and thoughts about it, because even with all these changes, and I would say like overall thoughts, you know, I'll get more into that later in the video, but like, you know, I am kind of still down on some of this stuff, because it is what it is. I still liked the game I played for hundreds of hours, and this, you know, in some aspects will be a better version of it, but I think in some aspects will be not really a better version of it, so we'll just have to wait and see. And I definitely still want to try it out soon. But let me keep going through these blogs. When can I play? Again, they said, Wayfinder once again to be available for purchase on Steam in early access June 11th. These changes will be coming to PlayStation 5 later in the year, and we'll keep players updated once we have a concrete timeline. PlayStation 4 support will be discontinued, with all PlayStation 4 versions being upgraded to PS5 at no additional cost. In the meantime, PlayStation 4 and 5 players can continue to access the game as normal. Relaunching in early access on a single platform allows us to be agile and make changes at a faster pace than before. We plan to leave early access later in 2024. During that time, we'll be adding gameplay refinements based on feedback, a new Wayfinder, a new location to explore, new expanded housing, and more. We're also formally announcing that Wayfinder will be coming to Xbox Series X and S during early access, and we'll find an update on timing later in the year. So there you go. I think they even had, there you go, there's the path ahead. You can see just that overview again. 31st, Echoes update goes live on Steam. And then June 11th will be when it's put back on sale for $24.99. It'll be considered early access. Sometime later in the summer, the Echoes update is going to go on PlayStation, and that is going to be also, again, $24.99. And then the fall, Wayfinder leaves early access and price increase, and it seems like they're going to try and do it all at once on all 3 platforms. So that's good, for sure. But so sometime in the fall, so it's not. It seems like it's not a super long wait. Hopefully, we'll also really dependent on when this new update comes out and how people feel about it and how much changes they need to make. I guess will dictate how long it takes to come to these other things. So here's the last thing they kind of have to say here. We know that the path to get here hasn't been easy, and the game has had a rocky past. We also know that this wasn't the original game that we envisioned or that our fans bought into. When faced with the reality of where we are, we saw our options as shuttering the game fully, as other online games have done before, are making this pivot and releasing the Echoes update. During this process, we quickly came to the realization that we're making a superior game for both current and future players. We'd love to support Wayfinder for years. We have ideas for additional characters and new content, and we have the intent to do so if players demand it and Wayfinder finds a new audience. And there you go. There's some last screenshots there that are kind of previews. Like that's the Frost March zone, or at least like a little chunk of it there that you can see. Cool looking. I like the sky swords or whatever going on there. Here's like a big render of Grendel. He looks cool, of course, as well. Pretty mixed on this for sure. They did some more Q&A in the Discord, so I'm going to switch over to that real quick. But yeah, overall, like they said here, they kind of had to make this choice to keep the game alive in any regard. So I understand why they did, but there's definitely some magic lost here. Like I said, I'm really sad to see that this is kind of where they ended up, because I think the game had some chances if it had more time, and maybe they had a little bit more time to work, maybe do some like closed and even open betas before their early access release, and like had a little bit more time to do that stuff rather than kind of pushing it out as it was, because I think that would have at least solved some of the rocky launch issues that happened. But obviously there was a lot of other things post-launch of that came up, and obviously Digital Extremes completely pulling out of the publishing division, leaving them very much high and dry out to do that, and probably seems like they wanted to take on the challenge, but the reality of how expensive it is to run and operate a live service free-to-play game, they were probably woefully unprepared for that stuff at Airship. It's just sad to see like that this is how everything has gone down with this game, and now it is at least going to be playable in some fashion. I still have a lot of questions about this version of the game. I think for me, no matter what, I think there will just unfortunately be like a magic loss to it, because I was bought into it because of it being this sort of live service game, and a game that'd be growing for years and years. And now even before, obviously there was always a chance it could have shut down as a live service game, like they said. But now seeing it as now the single player thing, and now they're just kind of like, well, we might do DLC, but it depends on if people buy it. Bleh. And then it's like, okay, yeah, like it could very much easily just they could just start getting into early access here, and then it just could they could all blow up again. I'm hoping they can at least maybe make it through early access, and we'll see where we stand there. Again, I think a big thing that was a big sentiment, obviously, well, people were first mad about all the money they spent on founder packs and things like that, because those were not cheap in the grand scheme of things, but this could happen with an early access game, right? Like it can happen. I immediately myself did not spend that amount of money, but I did buy like a mid-tier founder pack, and then also bought like Rune Silver and stuff for skins and things like that. The money stuff really is whatever to me. I've already made plenty of poor financial decisions in terms of gaming, so fucking whatever. That's like not really the thing that bums me out about this whole thing. It is really losing those the social things that get me so invested in Destiny. That now that we have a freaking YouTube channel and a podcast we do every week about it, and knowing that this game was heading in a direction to have more stuff like that, like clans or guilds for players to like join and jump in together and making a small communities to play with. They were they're talking about 6-player raids, and I remember like it was like early March. I feel like I was like, they had some Q&A and I was asking about like, how's that coming along or whatever, and they're like, yeah, we have plans, and it has like puzzle elements and other things, and it's gonna be 6 players, Destiny like. That was super exciting, and I couldn't wait to see their kind of interpretation of that stuff, even if it ended up being kind of a mixed bag because it was their first kind of attempt at that. It sounds like they've maybe reworked that into being a 3-player experience, which again is kind of the whole crux of this, of just like, yeah, that's just not as exciting as the original pitch of all this stuff. Now in this current form, like I said, like it's having world bosses in the game. Sure, okay, whatever, but like fighting them by myself, or even with just like 2 or 3 other players, like does not have the appeal of like having a bunch of people like summon in this moment to come fight it together, or like just like come across it in an open world moment in this zone and be like, oh, there's a big fire dome, the boss is here, so I'm just gonna run over there and get into it. And just, that was obviously cool emergent moments because it was online and had those moments of, or fun moments of just seeing players and these things. I loved jumping into the helper queue that they had, and just like it could be anything from like, oh, here's like a brand new player who's just getting into the game, and I can kind of help them sort of through this weird like matchmaking or whatever. And like there's not really gonna be any matchmaking anymore. They've talked about maybe we could explore that if the game has enough audience, but it's just it's a bummer. It's just unfortunate that this is where we're at. But let me go. I can jump into the Discord. There's a Q&A in there with a little bit more information. It's kind of just a little bit more context to some of the things already in this blog, but I might as well just go into that. So let's just jump into that real quick. Shout out to Snarson, who of course is the moderator in that Wayfinder Discord. He kind of collects all this stuff whenever this stuff pops off. So very appreciated that he's able to kind of collect all this stuff and put it in like a nice fashion for somebody like me who wants to read through this stuff and get stuff. So here we go. So again, this was a comment about the game now being going from single player to co-op. This is from Solid Age, the executive producer on Wayfinder. This is our intent, and we worked towards that. But when faced reality, here we are. So the industry, it was a shutter the game completely. In the Echoes update, we wanted to deliver something people can have, and even mod forever. So they did say there was going to be some kind of potential mod support, other things added to the game. I think that was kind of their answer to like, well, we might not be able to do anything about it, but maybe some other people will just come and do it. And like, for some stuff, like, sure, whatever, that's fine. But like, I really think they do need to look into some kind of matchmaking option, or I think like it really just does feel like this game is just going to be kind of left to wither if they aren't able to at least kind of maybe find some kind of matchmaking option to put in this game in the future, but whatever. So again, yeah, we had a partner who was handling the multiplayer stuff, then we didn't, so they're kind of talking about like, hey, Digital Extremes was handling a lot of the multiplayer and other matchmaking things, but now they're now they're not going to be able to do that. That's a lot of this thing. So again, why not add matchmaking back in? We've looked into it, but we're going to try and do that. Yep, crossplay with the removal of accounts. They don't have online accounts, because they were Digital Extremes DE accounts. They won't have any crossplay either. Crossplay viability will still be looked into, but it's complicated because again, yeah, it means like they would have to make their own accounting system and like kind of have to rework, basically kind of redo that whole thing from the ground up, or find, I guess, some other place that they have to pay to make that stuff work. It's kind of tough. Like, again, that would have to be like a publisher thing. So I get it, but it's definitely sad. They say like co-op, everyone makes progress in a co-op session. It's, you know, they have that all going. Yeah, progress wipe, of course, happening. People were pretty upset about that. So they say, what is going to happen to the community? Multiplayer community will still very much be a thing. It's just not server based. I still plan on having community competitions and seeing what y'all come up with. It's no different than how Borderlands, Remnant 2, or hundreds of other co-op games work. Yeah, I get it. Like, that's kind of just what they're gonna have to do now. Like, a lot of that stuff is gonna be very dependent on like the activity you have in their Wayfinder Discord to be able to now like participate in maybe like a community thing, and like that's like there's only so much of that to like keep that going or exciting to an extent, right? Like, I think again the emergent things I talked about, like social aspects, were kind of like where that true magic is for me personally. And also obviously the building on the future of that, of like finding like an actual like clan to build or make a community around that I can always play with, was like what was the excitement for that stuff. And that's what I love about Destiny, of course. So now this game does not have really anything like that. Having to go to this Discord every time I want to like group up with people for something just seems like so much extra stuff to like do every time I want to like try and do that. So maybe for a few occasions here and there, just to like try it, we'll see. But like it's a lot to ask. So that's why I'm really hopeful they can do some kind of like, if you're considered like private servers or a server browser. Again, it's something they would like to do in the future. So hopefully they can get some kind of matchmaking going, even if it's like a super basic one that is just like, here is like what they essentially had, which was a helper queue. You know, I don't need matchmaking for everything, but like just have some generic queue that throws me into like some kind of content that I can play with other players if they open up their thing to like be match made with or whatever. I know it's not an easy thing to get up and going, but like I think it would make me a lot more excited about the game again, frankly. Again, this is a free update. This Echoes update is free. Unless you, I mean, obviously, if you don't own the game, it's not free. But you know, if you were a founder already, you don't have to rebuy. Founders will still have exclusive items. Yes, no founders items will be available in game to earn. So you did buy certain tiers of founder packs. That is your stuff, and you're still exclusive to that. They also brought up, can higher tier founders get free DLC in the future? I think that's reasonable. We'll bring it to the team. So yeah, like that's definitely that wouldn't be a bad perk for founders potentially. And yeah, I think there was definitely a lot of, during this moment, I can remember that like people were talking about these items being exclusive, but then they also talk about being able to add mod support to the game, and that kind of making people a little like irksome, because like, well, now people are just going to mod it and unlock all the exclusive items themselves for them, and like that doesn't really bother me that much. Like if you're going out of your way to like mod a game like this to that point, to like get a bunch of free stuff, like whatever, like that doesn't really bother me. I get it. People just, I mean, I'm just gonna be blunt and say like, maybe if that upsets you that much about people like modding their games and doing that thing, like maybe think about like, you know, spending your money in better ways. That's pretty much comes down to it. Let's see. Again, like I said, what happened to the items that were previously microtransaction only? Thousands of previously microtransaction items have now been converted into in-game loot. Lots with actual gameplay implications now. I generally can't think of an example of this happening in the past. Yeah, I think they're right. Like, the closest thing I can think of is, I believe Marvel's Avengers had a thing where, like, a lot of the... I think, like, now that game is no longer on sale, I think they converted it to where, like, I think you can get the paid currency in-game now, so you could feasibly, like, do, like, a hella grind to, like, get the skins. I think that happened. I'm not 100%, because I for sure did not play that game. I was not playing that game at all at that point, in its lifespan. But, you know, I think that's, like, the only game I can think of off the top of my head that, like, converted, like, microtransaction items into things you could actually go chase after the game sort of closed. Are they worth collecting? There are lots of other items worth collecting from early bosses. Armor sets are percent based, so will always scale to your level. So that's pretty good. Like, armor sets, that's cool to have that, but I kind of also wish like weapons did that. But, you know, we'll keep going here. How to randomize weapon drops work. You go into a dungeon and find a level 1 Tooth and Claw with X exo slots on it. You keep playing, and 10 minutes later, you for a level 5 Tooth and Claw with Y echo slots on it. All weapons and armor are now drops with stats. So again, I like that the armor scales with you. That's cool. They also confirmed like stuff like transmog is going to be still, like that was already in the game as it currently was, so that's still going to be a thing. So that's like, I always like that stuff in these games, of course. So that's great. But like the weapon stuff, I'm still very curious about. Like if there is ways to like, hey, I like this level 1 weapon I got, or even if it was end up being a level 1 or like 5 or whatever early level weapon, and like I like the slots, echo slots on it. Is there a way for me to like bring that forward? Like even if they end up just doing like a Destiny infusion system or something like that, like infusing the item, like a higher level item into that one to do that for like some currencies you need to grind out or whatever. Like I think that'd be fine, but you know, we'll just see. So it's happened with Helper Coins. Helper Coin Shop has been expanded and is still in the game. Get coins via the job, so like they have like job boards and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's like going to be adjusted and not be like weekly and dailies anymore, of course. So that's happening. Will we still get Echoes V2? No, the Encyclopedia method wasn't in the scope for this transition with the time we had. So I'm guessing Echoes will still be randomized then, I guess. Yeesh. Okay, all players are getting the reward towers for free. Founders will still get their exclusive items in-game. NPC store for exclusive items based on rune silver purchased in early access. So there you go. There'll still be 2 reward towers to collect items, but they're free for everyone. So it seems just like they're like, yeah, we're just kind of giving these to everybody because, yeah, we're not doing reward towers anymore. So like, there's no reason to just here you go, get the stuff from them you want, and then you're done. How much longer will the story be? Has it been polished? Story's been fleshed out, more quests for it, and even a really amazing boss battle and cinematic. Gotta see it May 31st. We've been working specifically to rework the story in this effort. The main story will end with a climactic ending. Plus, we have a whole new zone, story content coming when this game fully leaves early access. Okay, so like there is an ending. That was like a big curiosity of me too, of just like, I'm fine with them trying to figure out something to have a close gap for this, because it is just going to be like sort of a complete experience, but they still talk about like maybe wanting to do DLC and add characters and stuff, and there's this other drop coming later, still in early access with a new zone and a character, and like how does that stuff tie into the story? Does it even have story stuff that matters then? Like I don't like, I'm still curious about how that stuff, because I think people are still hoping of like, yeah, if it's gonna be like a finished game, that means it's gonna like tie up in a pretty bow, right? And it's like, I don't know, just because like, you know, they've been working on this update for a while. I think they said they've been working on it since like earlier this year, but it's still only been a few months, so I can't imagine it's been like that dramatic of a change. I don't know if they've had enough time to really like fix this way and make it feel like a super fine penultimate conclusion, when they still want to hopefully leave the door open for like DLC and this other later early access update. Like I don't know how they're going to do that stuff then. So I don't know. It seems like the story still might just be left a little open-ended. I could see it. But, you know, we'll have to see. Hope the devs have been cooking. Yes, as stated, we love the world. We're doing this for long-term growth and protection. If the game has an audience, we'd love to continue supporting it for a very long time. We have tons of new characters, areas, and the like, all concepted in various stages of dev. This isn't a release and run. Also, before we even leave our access, we'll have a new Wayfinder, brand new zone, brand new housing, and more. I'm so excited for y'all to see the housing expansion. This is another big one for me, frankly, where I'm like, okay, housing is still in, but like, how much does it matter now that I'm like, I don't have like clan mates that we can like do housing stuff with? Is like the amount of like my housing just going to be like putting all of this work into making like a cool house area? Is that all just going to amount to like, check out this screenshot in the Discord, like, of my house? Like, you know, there's just not a magic to that of like not being able to like have a reason to chase those things in the game. I'm assuming like things like artifacts and the other stuff that like actually had gameplay impact are still going to be a thing. So like that stuff will still probably be around, and maybe we're chasing depending on like the characters you play and the builds and other things like that. And you know, if the game does keep going, then like, yeah, like I'd still be worth like wanting to maybe go chase that stuff down if it has like cool ramifications, or maybe there's some kind of even though the story ends, maybe there is still like a post game sort of thing you can go and do and makes it worthwhile to like interact with this stuff. Like that's definitely my biggest question, right? Like I know this is going to be a single player thing, but it has co-op, and like I get that they want to have the bow on the end of it, but like clearly they still want to, if they find the audience, they want to keep doing stuff for the game and like have like some kind of like basis for things, and they talk about matchmaking and stuff. So like there has to be something else here to make some of this stuff like matter, like having to go get housing items or like finding what characters and builds and things like that were like really cool aspects about the MMO, and like they converting that raid into a 3-player thing. So like is that like an end game piece of content now that's like post the story stuff? Like I'm hoping there at least something exists that feels like worthwhile to play and maybe even replay for a while, and like makes it feel like cool when like a new characters and new other stuff comes to the game. I hope they do something still with that. If they can at least do that, then like I'm still pretty stoked for that. Then I'll be more happy and excited for whatever this game ends up doing and perceiving, because there's at least going to be something that makes doing all that stuff worthwhile. And I hope that's something they are thinking about with all this stuff for sure. We plan to update the game through early access. After that the fans will decide if there's any audience. We'll keep working on it. Again, we are making this pivot so we can support the game long term. If the audience is there, we'll keep making content. Again, there it is. We had 6-player raids working, and we've done the work to convert it to 3-player content. When that comes out, no idea right now. So I guess, yeah, if you know they have a 3-player raid, I guess maybe they won't call it a raid anymore because it's not really that. But like that has to be like some kind of other part of the content. Then there has to be like some other part of this game then, but post the story, I would maybe imagine that, you know, they haven't really gone deep into about why you want to, why is it worthwhile to like go track down all the housing items, or like, you know, really grind out and level up a character and make builds for them and do all this other stuff. Like, you know, just what is that? And that's kind of where I'm at with it. What kind of changes can we see to the affinity/archetype system? Each Wayfinder now has 3 unique aspect talents, depending on what affinity you want to invest into. Free respecking. The 3 archetypes have unique talent trees. Okay. That is a pretty big change. Each archetype has a unique, expansive talent tree now. Think Path of Exile. Don't worry, don't see as frustrating as PoE each talent trees can be. So there you go. It says, why can't you find a publisher to solve some of your problems? We try and say the industry is not in a deal signing mode. So yeah, that's something they talk about. They did some interviews. They did an interview on SkillUp. Shout out to SkillUp, great YouTube channel. Does a bunch of reviews and stuff. They also do the Friends Per Second podcast, and he had Joe and the president, also the president, and all that from Airship Syndicate to talk about more. And they kind of gave a more in-depth thing of like, yeah, we did ship it around to try and maybe get a publisher on board to take DE's place, but you know, with like the current industry and like, you know, if you follow the game industry in the larger sense, there's layoffs everywhere across the industry. Everyone's kind of stepping back, and that's, you know, there's not a lot of spending, there's not a lot of publishing happening, and money's not really going around. And obviously, Wayfinder had a pretty tough launch, even if it wasn't fully on Airship Syndicate, and seemed like it was more on Digital Extremes, and some of their technical issues led to that not happening. So there you go. Pretty unfortunate, but that's just where we stand now. A bigger co-op multiplayer content in the future. At the moment, 3-player co-op was the only thing within scope. We would love to explore larger group content, but that will depend on if we can continue to fund future content development. So let's see here. Here's a peek at changes for weapons. Here you go. Weapons have undergone some large changes from what they have been before the Echoes update. Weapons have been converted into actual loot drops with fixed levels and stats. They can be found as drops brought from vendors or as quest rewards. The following is some additional information in regards to weapons. Weapons no longer level up, but drop at different level ranges. Weapon XP resonant caches have been removed. Echo slots are randomly rolled each time you loot a new weapon. Rush and cross-type echo slots are fixed, and players can now own multiple of the same weapon. Awakening benefits all instances of the weapons, and awakening levels are now easier to achieve. Weapon essence has been removed. Weapons that were previously cosmetic, only skins will remain the same. However, they can be found as loot throughout the game and applied in the style menu like normal. Also, there will be 10 new weapons, so that's pretty cool. So here's a bunch of like image teasers for some stuff coming. So these were pretty cool. So here's a look at Grendel and some cool skins. He's of course on a horse mount there, but there he is in some crazy looking armor. It's pretty cool. I believe this is a Kairos skin. Pretty cool. He has some kind of interesting looking gun, I think, on his back. Very like robotic-y face there on Kairos. Here's look. It looks like some new damage numbers and some like portals on the side there. Interesting for this like Titan guy. Bunch more numbers on there. There's a pretty cool Nis skin with like all bony and evil looking. Pretty cool. Another Nis skin there with some kind of interesting like tree. Looks like one of those tree monsters from the snowy area. It's a sword and shield. That's pretty cool. Yep, there's like a closer look at it. That's pretty sick. There's another different gloom tiger, gloom monster looking mount. Pretty cool. It looks like a Kairos skin and a new sword. It's all gloomified. Pretty neat. Here's the new menu. Continue new game, all that stuff. Level 30 Nis. Wayfinder rank 19. Main story quest completed. Okay, so there you go. There's those teases there. Let's see what else we got here. That looks like that's like some Wingrave. You can see some teases of some Wingrave skins or outfits. So there's like a armor set, and here he is in like more like a old school looking outfit. Bannerlord. That's pretty cool. I believe that's it's a venomous. So you can see now it drops with her. It's like a little kind of I guess what would you call it, like a cloak almost, or it's like a bottom of like a cape or a cloak or whatever, or a coat. So you can see it has crit power and break power now, and like they said, it's all percentage based. Again, here's another look at Venomous and her armor, some armor she can get. That's a cool looking different set for her. Less like kind of stuff going on. Very neat. There's I think that's like another Kairos skin. He's like a robot Kairos. That's pretty cool. On a mount, because there's another render of Grendel. There's the Frost March as well. Some other stuff. Oh, here's like a little gameplay clip. So you go. There's Nis in that kind of skin, and there she's grabbing some loot, leaving like a very, very crazy looking gloom area. Here you go. There's other. I think this is the difference in loading between the updated game and the new game, I'm guessing. So this is when they you had to join a server, and this is the new version. You can see it's significantly faster loading into the game. So it's still in Skylight. It's even some updated UI. I like the health updates to the UI. It looks pretty nice. There's like your weapon, like a weapon skill. There's you can summon your mount there on your keyboard. Buff info, emotes and stuff, of course, are all still there. So cool. That's pretty dang fast. That's nice for sure. There's I guess a look at some drops. So you can see there's a ransom drop. That's level 3. There's the power. That you can even see the echo slot it has from there. That's cool. And you get some great gloom stones and all that stuff. So yeah, good. That looks cool. This is already much longer than I thought it would be. Whatever. I've kind of given my thoughts throughout the video, but just to sum it all up here at the end, I understand that this is kind of just how the way the thing's got to be, right? Because they pretty much said hey, in this scenario, we're going to shut down the online game, and it would just be gone in the ether and poof, no more existence. At least now there is a game you can go play, even if it is not going to be the game I was necessarily looking to play, and for probably sounds lame to some folks, but a game I was looking to invest in and play for a long time, right? I wanted to have a moment where the raid came out and I'm getting raid ready for that content and jumping in and doing it with 5 other people and having that moment like you have in Destiny, because it's a magic moment in that game, and probably in a lot of other video games that have raiding content, MMO type content. Having those little moments in the social spaces of Skylight and other areas, and seeing players or meeting up at Talon of Pyre, the world boss, all that stuff was great. And I get people a lot of reasons don't like stuff that a lot of the other aspects of that, where I think they get caught up a lot in there's so many microtransactions, or they're wasting my time, or blah 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 blah. And I get it. I understand that I think that stuff probably eats away at people more than having those other things. But I knew those sometimes are necessary evils. MMO and online games to keep them running and having these moments where they can keep making stuff for it for a good while and have this rollout of stuff. So it's just a little, so it's just disappointing to see this. But at the end of the day, I still want to jump into Wayfinder Echoes and see this update and see how the game feels now in its current form. I'm going to play through some of this stuff in early access. I will probably have a video. Granted, this is all happening days after, like pretty much a week after the final shape drops, the other big game we cover on this channel. So we'll figure out how I'm going to fit all this in. So I might not have a video the very moment this stuff all drops, but I do want to play this game and get a vibe of it and see how this new version of this game works out. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on Wayfinder's Echo and the future of Wayfinder. A longer video than I thought this would be because I was trying to read all this information. It's a lot of information, and I had a lot of thoughts as well to share. So if you stuck through this video, I'm gonna try and maybe edit it down a little bit. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. More Wayfinder stuff in the future, but probably not as much as I would have had originally if it would have been of the game it was. But hey, again, that is what it is. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.